So, what are we talking about today?
We're kicking it up.
We can talk about a
Legendary
bunch of
Terror at
stuff.
some point?
BBG was streaming Runeterra today.
No shit, really?
I heard it was 'cause TFT was
servers
down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
of course.
But I saw that when I went on. I was like, what?
He couldn't get off. He couldn't get off LOR fast.
Bro, it would be a petrified bro-doing extraordinaire player.
Just like every time he loses a game, he just alt tabs and refreshes TFT to see
Yeah,
if it's up
literally
again.
I'm not gonna lie, I miss his streams.
Yeah.
What's up? I actually one of the first streamer that I started watching just when I started learning the game.
He was a
'Cause I was
pillar of the
following him
community,
from-
right?
Yeah, I was following him from Underlord because I played a lot of that when that was a real game.
Yeah. I used to watch a lot of him during the day, for sure. I'd have him on, you know, especially during the meta where like Zoe Aesol was broken as shit. But
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. It's been a hot minute. It is what it is. You know, people move on. If they aren't enjoying the game, then it's totally understandable if they would move on, right?
I would if I was him. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't really watch streamers that aren't like my friends. I usually
see,
just pop in to hang out and say what's up, and like that's about it.
That's why you farm the parasocial relationships, right? That way everyone feels like they're your friend. And then you know you get the viewer.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But anyone who streams from like 8 to like 11 p.m. will get a little extra margin watch time because that's when I edit my YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
Put it on the side.
So it's like Aikado and Puffball Panda usually. I like the ones who are on at that time. What are we going to talk about? I'm assuming just like decks we've been playing ladder. Seasonal's coming up.
Seasonal is coming up.
Yeah, I know Mr. Jason Florent hasn't had a lot of time because he's been very busy. And then I haven't been practicing for seasonals because I won't be playing in seasonals.
Which is sad, but it has priorities. I would also play the Pro Tour if I was you. I was still thinking of coming down to New Jersey, but I knew it was at the same time as the seasonal, and I'm not playing the Pro Tour. I'm like, I could play the seasonal on my phone.
You've got a
just hang out
phone
with a couple of friends.
Yeah.
Probably not though.
Yeah.
There's
I
lots
got
of
a deck
seasonal
for you.
winners from
Yeah,
phones.
no, pull some weight for
You
sure.
want to play Chain? I got Chain. Unless I'm playing Chain. Then you don't get it. Then you can play Star
You'll let Star War hold by.
or Viscerai or whatever. I'll just hand you Kano and watch you try to do math for
I
a
can
day.
do math.
You'd be like, what the fuck is this? How do I
Okay.
do damage?
Okay,
Alright.
I'll start this bad boy off. So let's start with ladder. What's a couple things? One thing I wanted to note on. Actually, there was a few things. Yeah, okay, I got some stuff. One, let's start with what does everyone think of the new rules changes now that we've had time to actually play with them? I've enjoyed it. I thought it'd be cool. I still think it's fine. I like it. Thoughts?
Can I get the ultra hot take here?
Yep. Let's hear it.
Go ahead.
I think that it's like good across the board. I think that there's some that probably need to be changed. You know, like Karma's interaction with it's kind of weird, and Tark's is kind of weird.
Yeah,
You're changing that.
But like, I think Lux is totally fine with it. I think Ezreal isn't even an issue. I think that Ezreal's interaction with it is totally fine. I think that there are some situations where he's slightly stronger, but for the most part, doesn't really matter. I think it's a great change. I think it's awesome.
I 100% agree with you.
Was that a hot take?
I think
It might be
I think
hot
that
on certain circles.
if people hear me say that Ezreal is not a problem, like I think there's a lot of people that have an issue with that.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It kind of like depends on what you call like a hot problem. I think like most parts of everything is fine. Some parts I still don't quite like, just not being able to interact with how champions level up. I think that's like the biggest gripe for me. Ezreal's mostly fine, but I just don't like the fact that you can just burst kill people. That part just never sits well.
I feel that, but I'm telling you, 99, not 99, but like
Doesn't matter,
90%
yeah.
of these situations, you're fucking dead anyway. There have been like a few games where I'm like, okay, yeah, I squeaked out like 4 extra damage for my Ezreal, which can matter 100%. But a lot of the time it doesn't. And a lot of time people are complaining about situations. You know, I'm watching streamers and they're like, oh my God, this Ezreal did so much damage to me. What the fuck is this? This is such bullshit. It's like, Bro, you didn't have interaction anyway. You were dead. What
It's
the
just
fuck?
it's just a feels bad moment, right? Like you can't put anything on stack. They put 5 spells on stack, and suddenly you're just dead. And
For sure.
So yeah,
you go.
Yeah, so I think I agree with most of it. As far as the 2 rule changes goes, I like them both, and I think it made the game better. And like, while I miss burst pass, I think they were unnecessary and annoying. And the merging of the play and the cast was like the first thing that was unintuitive when I was starting to learn the game. And once I learned everything, I actually enjoyed the difference. But I understand that it makes it more accessible, and it's not really like a skill testing things. Like I've seen people argument like, no, the game is less skill intensive now because like of the play and cast merge, which I don't think is true. There is for sure still a problem. I'm borderline on Ezreal. My problem is not with the damage. It never has been with the damage. It's just by the fact that it flips so much more consistently faster against certain deck now, which is my only problem. Like when I play Heimer Hez versus Heimer Hez, and I used to play controller and things like that, I was good. I was able to deny a lot of the Ezreal proc from like him flipping, which I can't do anymore, and actually flips those matchups on its head. And which is maybe where the problem lies with Ezreal, but the fact that it can burst damage, I don't think is a problem. Overall, I like the change, Riot.
That's a great point. Ezreal not being able to deny his level progress anymore is like really huge. Like if they're gonna nerf him, I'm down to put his targets up to like 7 or 8 to level up. I think that's totally fine because you can't deny them anymore. I think it's totally fine. But yeah, burst passing though, come on.
I miss it. Like there's a couple spots.
It slows the game down so much, though. Like, you don't like that the games are just so much smoother and faster now.
They are. That's a fair.
I also still burst pass like all the time.
Yeah,
I burst pass all the time still.
Totally, because like you're like if you play something for 2 or 3 mana that's burst speed, your opponent's like, oh, I could end the turn. Okay, but you just lit all your mana on fire and did nothing. Like it's not always that good.
I can see with the hands. Kevin really wants to say something.
The way I use burst pass, it was not to like get gotcha moments. I actually used burst spells as a way to pass priority because like I didn't want to hand the turn, but that's all that I was able to do was like a couple bursting things that I wanted to sequence differently. But now I need to either do them all or just like do one, maybe my opponent pass a priority back. And that's the thing I miss, because when I wanted to play like 1 or 2 like bursting in a different sequencing, burst pass allows me to do that. Also, like when you do like a very complicated turn and your rope is burning out, I've had that argument on Twitter. Like burst passing was a way to not lose your turn, which was relevant a lot when, if you remember things like eggs, Jason. Like when you played like eggs, like there was a lot of time where you would do so much action, it was going to burn through your ropes anyway, and you needed to burst pass. I think that change actually killed the deck, which whatever.
If the deck was even alive, I think. I think my biggest thing is for a while people talked about the game being kind of too complicated for people to just jump into, which I sort of disagreed with. But I was looking at it from a player who had played card games and had a bunch of help getting going. But like Magic the Gathering, for instance, it's like kind of almost impossible to learn the game by yourself. And like WotC knows this, and this is why they support grassroots so much, what they have, because you basically need someone to teach you the game. Like you can't just like take the rule book and read it and start learning. Like you can you need to watch, and you have people to like explain how things are working. And I think LOR had the same sort of problem, or does have, to a slightly lesser degree, of course, but still it's there. And I think these rules changes, just like when things just level up, you just get the Heimerdinger trigger, and Ezreal just levels, and it's just like, oh, everything just happened. It's like, cool. It's not like confusing or anything. And the burst passing being gone, the turns kind of just like go much smoother. It's like I play something, you play something most of the time. It just seems like they've really like streamlined it, and like, yeah, it's simplified, but I don't think it's taken away from the strategy very much at all. So I'm really for it. I think it's a good change. I think it needed to happen. I think stuff like this is important. I'm glad that they're like cognizant of these sort of things and making these kinds of changes, because I think that's one of the things, like barrier to entry is one of the things we need to solve for like the game to take off.
So the only negative that I'm going to bring here is the fact that it's such a big change that it was going to come with a lot of bugs, and things like Taric and Karma we would just touch, which and they said, oh, actually we don't actually want that to work like this. We're going to fix it, but we still have to play the seasonals on those kind of like weird interaction. And that's my only problem is maybe they just don't care about seasonals. They made it clear it's fine. Like they're not balancing for it. They're not trying to do things with it in mind. But like as a player who was expecting to play seasonal, now the couple things that are just not working as they should is the problem. And it was just such a big change that maybe it was better from my point of view to just put it right after the seasonal. But we needed the patch anyway, so I don't know how I could have done it if I were them.
I think ideally this change would have happened like a month and a half ago, because we kind of had this
something
like ideally
time,
yeah. But really, like I think that the big game breaking bugs have been like changed,
Mostly
and
smoothed out,
like
right?
stuff
Yeah.
that didn't get affected that should have been, like tree, has been changed and has been fixed. The Ash thing got fixed. I think that the Jace, or not the Jace, the Karma and Lux, or Karma
and
Taric.
Taric, and there's a couple other very
yeah.
small example, I
So,
guess.
like those interactions, I think just make like the champions bad. But I think if the interactions were like super broken, is doing like insanely broken shit, I could see like an argument for like, yeah, Riot needs to get in here and change this before seasonals. But as it is, it's like, okay, I wasn't going to play Karma or Taric anyway, so like.
Well, it means that like in my Pantheon, I'm gonna play 3 Yuumi instead of 1 Taric, 2 Yuumi, or even sometimes I had 2 Taric, 1 Yuumi, because I like Taric, but now it just like it doesn't trigger Faded. It's not worth it. So
God forbid you play the broken cat instead of the big strong man. I hate to see
Speaking
it.
of,
God forbid.
I am getting really tired of playing against Pantheon.
Oh, dude.
I either play a
It
deck
doesn't
with
lose to anything. Well, I mean, it does, but it doesn't.
Yeah, the decks it does lose to, it loses so hard to. You feel like LeBron James playing against the 6th graders. They're just like, "Hi, has big thing," and you're like, "No," and then you just no. But then like you play anything else, and you're like, "Fuck, how do I deal with this?" Like they just play the Saga Seeker into Yuumi into Zenith, and you're like, "Oh, the game's over." Like
honestly, super impressed with Yuumi as of late. I always thought she was like not that great, but
yeah,
in like as the meta slows down, there's less aggro. Like it's so easy to get that spell shield on her.
Oh yeah, it shifted in the way
then
that
it's
made her so that
I just get dumped on.
I don't even think the spell shield's like the big thing. It's that you just fucking plop Yuumi on a Saga Seeker, and suddenly the fucker's like 8-8 or 8-9 with
never
like
dies,
overwhelm
yeah.
on like turn 4.
Saga Seeker's
It's
an
like,
issue as well.
what just happened?
Yeah, they're threatening lethal on turn 5 with Cataclysm, and you're like,
yeah, I've revised my position. I've been anti-Pantheon for a long time. I was like, it's because he rolls Scout, and the rest of the deck is fine, but he needs to not hit Scout. No, fuck it. He needs to not hit Scout. Saga Seeker needs to be a 0-1. White Flame needs to be a 1-2. Pantheon needs to be a 2-3. I'm fucking done with this deck. It's so fucking stupid.
Oh my god! It off.
Also, you can't like if they, the way attach works is that it doesn't go on the stack. You're just like on 3. You're sitting there with like your Mystic Shot or whatever. You get excited, and then you're like, not Yuumi, not Yuumi, not Yuumi, not Yuumi, and it's Yuumi, and you're like, okay, well, fuck, I die then. Darn.
And they get the Yuumi back, even if you can finally kill it. They just get it back and they toss it on something else. And Zenith Blade cycles itself. Oh my god, dude. I'm done with this fucking
so in Magic, they have like enchantments that do the same sort of thing, but they go in the stack, so you can kill the thing in response. And then also, if it hits it and then you kill the thing, like they just both go to the graveyard. It going back to your hand is like a little strange to me. What do you think if like one of those got changed, where like the equip cards just didn't go back to your hand, or if they went on the stack? Do you think like one of those would work in LOR?
You want to kill Aphelios?
Aphelios? If you make it so attach doesn't go back to your hand, I think you were killing the mechanic.
Think so? Like how many times does Yuumi just go the distance? Like a lot.
It's not just about Yuumi. It's about all the other attachments.
Or how many times do you get hit by a Papercraft Dragon? Like
God, that stupid elusive.
This is what you do though. This is what you do. You just make them a little bit better. So like make them whatever, cheaper or whatever, but then make it so that if they die, like they're gone for forever. Like you just balance it out that way,
I don't know. It's still like kind of tough because like if you put on a spell shield unit, it's never dying.
I also hate this kind of play style and always have. Like my least favorite deck
Boggles.
in like Magic is Boggles. It's miserable.
Build-A-Bear,
Boggles is
baby.
basically spell shield units plus
Put
attach
that in a
shit,
Pro Tour.
and it's
God damn
awful, and I hate it. It's just like the least fun deck to play against. And Pantheon feels like Boggles because you like don't really get to meaningfully interact with the units because they're so fucking big on turn 3 for no
Okay,
reason.
let's talk about the meta though now. Like, so I haven't been playing a whole bunch, but from what I'm like, I'm still like keeping an eye on the ladder and like playing a little bit. Seems like the meta is like the ladder meta is like pretty wide open. Is that what you guys are seeing?
No, there's 2 decks on ladder.
Yeah.
There's 3 decks. There's 3 decks on ladder, okay? I'll hit you with them. 1, FTR bullshit ramp. There's like 3 different flavors. They're all bullshit. They're all stupid as hell. Number 2, Jace Lux is everywhere. That's the only thing people are playing. And then number 3, I just forgot it.
No, it's burn. It's like a dragon burn deck.
Pirates and Pantheon.
I
is
see,
what
like,
I
no
go
one-
for.
Yeah,
That's-
burn.
So no
And
one's playing
Pantheon.
Aphelios.
What are you talking about? It's like
No one's playing any Shurima decks. No one's playing
Oh,
Aphelios.
Talia Ziggs.
Aphelios.
Oh, there's so much Talia
Pantheon,
Ziggs.
it's Talia
There's
Ziggs.
so much.
it's
Mono
Bro, what are you
Shurima.
talking
And
about?
then-
Mono
Yeah,
Shurima is the
Shurima
most
is
played deck.
Nobody's playing
Nathan
Mono
Hoffman,
Shurima.
Not on Master Ladder
Mafia
anymore.
watching?
It's just, I think it's just like bleed over stats from like 2 weeks ago or something. Because like I see no Sundisk at all in the ladder, and
Yeah, I don't
it's
care.
kind of it just feel kind of weird. And for me, the biggest thing, right, real quick about Sundisk, is I felt the Pantheon matchup was okay-ish. Still, I didn't mind playing against it, but just now that I'm like a turn and a half slower. I think the matchup is just straight up bad now for Sundisk versus Pantheon,
Yeah,
which was the big of my pull to like want to play Sundisk.
Yeah, Sundisk is still a very good deck though, anyways. But
It's a tournament deck. Yeah.
it's been slowed down decently enough. Still sucks to play against, but
I think the only Aphelios deck is this stupid ass Aphelios.
Aphelios, yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think this
no,
deck
no.
is good. I
It's
really
kind of
don't.
good now.
It's putting up so much numbers though.
It's kind of good.
I don't think I've ever lost this
Pretty
fucking deck. Like,
okay.
I don't know, homie.
So the P and Z Aphelios deck is not good.
I haven't seen it. Nobody plays it.
disappeared.
PNZ Aphelios loses to FTR
Yeah,
because you
this is
play
the
She Who
problem.
Wins.
It loses to FTR and to Leah Ziggs, and
Yeah.
it loses to Sundisk.
And
It
it doesn't
loses
even
to
have
half the
that good.
fucking ladder.
It doesn't even have that good a Pantheon matchup.
Yeah, it's like even in a Pantheon.
Yeah, it's okay.
If it wasn't for Cataclysm, that would absolutely not be the case. But Cataclysm is the
Oh,
most
true.
busted ass card in Pantheon on the planet.
I still like Aphelios PNZ. It just it's not the meta for it.
Mhm.
And you could sprinkle in some like
Yeah.
Ezreal Burn into that, like Ezreal Shellfolk and Ezreal Burn, like Ezreal Heimer and Ezreal Victor, things like that.
You know,
I-
I'm sure you could skill difference players if you spend like 15 minutes a game, but you know, that's just not what I
You really
want to be
wanna do
doing.
Jace Heimer, Shadow Isles is kind of sick. I've been
Yeah, I
crushing
need
people
to
with
try
that.
this one. It looks so weird.
It's pretty good. But bro, I can't tell you how many times I was playing Aphelios against like pirates, and you're just like, okay, Severum, Infernum, I win. Like that's the whole game. You're like, I win.
You having fun?
That's it. Yeah. It's kind of fun because it feels like a little degenerate. It is degenerate, by the way.
It's so
But it's kind of fun. But like when you don't draw like Lantern or Aphelios, like the deck's pretty bad.
I
It's-
feel like the deck abuses like people who like don't play well against it or like have zero interaction. And like sometimes it nut draws, right? Like Lantern's broken as hell, Aphelios is broken as hell, right? And like when you nut draw, like yeah, it's good. I don't know. If you look at its matchup table, other than FTR, it's kind of losing to like every tier 1 deck.
You lose to a lot of things. Yeah. You
I think it
cannot
just, like,
lose to
shits on-
FTR though. It's like impossible.
I think it shits on bad players and bad decks. I think that's the big thing.
I'm on the opposite opinion of if you look at the matchup table, this deck just feels very hard to actually play properly, and you just lose more than you should against certain matchup because like there's probably less than 10 players that can play that deck actually super well.
You can use that argument for any deck.
Yeah, but
We've been using that
but
to
this-
say like
We've
tier one, tier
all
two,
but
used
five,
that
this
for
is
our own
this is
deck.
the same reason as like Harry Kennen last season. Like the top players, they were all saying Harry Kennen is a problem, and you looked at the stats and you're like, okay, it's a 53% deck, it's fine. It's not quite to that extent, but it feels very similar as like it's a deck that I think is almost close to problematic. I think it's pretty good, but it's very, very hard to play, and you need a lot of games on it for it to be good. And nobody actually wants to play a lot of games on it because it feels miserable.
It's not that hard, right? Just throw your weapons on Fizz. I mean, come on.
I don't know. I haven't played it enough, and it indeed does not look that hard. But every players that I've played it that I see is like, oh yeah, all my losses is just because I suck with it. It's like, 100 games. What do you mean?
I think I might have used that line too earlier this week.
I'm just jamming stupid decks right now. I'm playing Feel the Mina, bro. Like,
yeah,
you love that.
I don't give a fuck.
You're camping. It don't even matter.
I'm not camping yet. I gotta try to get up there for Worlds points because I can't get the seasonal points.
Really? That's true. That's true. We're gonna do some racing, me and you, huh?
Oh yeah. What are you sitting at right now? Like 700?
I was at like 900 until 2 days ago, where I inted 200 LP, so I'm around 6 to 7. But I plan to still play a lot of ladder, so like there's gonna be a lot of swings. Last comment of like the ladder metagame, because we're like on that. It feels, we always say that like rock paper scissory, but it feels like more amplified right now, just because like the way maybe like there's the big Demacia deck, and a lot of the natural things that was good against is kind of bad against everything else, and now FTR is like one of the other pillar, and this also has very polarized matchups. I don't know. It doesn't feel that good to play on ladder at the moment. It feels very flippy, and I usually try to hone in on like 1 or 2 decks that I spam a lot of, and I've been trying to do that the past 2 days, and nothing have worked. Those decks that I feel fine just spamming a lot, and don't know if that's like it means the metagame is good, but to me it means it's like does not feel good.
Yeah, I feel that with like Aphelios. I love playing Aphelios when it's winning. When it's doing its thing, it's so much fun. But when like your draw doesn't work out, it is such a miserable deck to play because your cards are individually like really bad. They're just not, and if they don't line up right, then it's just like a bad experience. But yeah, when the deck's humming, it like feels really good. I was really enjoying the Shadow Isles Heimer Jace deck, really liking it. And then I turned on stream today and lost like 4 in a row to like some pretty rough games.
The deck plays like X-Tech thingy, right?
Yeah, it's the Hex-Tech Handler deck, which is a nuts-ass card still.
It technically got a pretty good buff. It's the same buff as like just White Jace is good right now. It like rocks right there.
Yeah. So yeah, now on your opponent's turn 3, you can play Hex-Tech Handler, and then on your turn 4, if you have the token, you just bam, 6-cost spell. Usually you just dump 7 mana into the make random turrets, and then
there's a card I always hated that I think is actually good with the changes is Forge of Tomorrow. I've never liked that card. I always thought that card was poop, but now that you get the mana regardless of what happened, like I'm kind of it grown on me. I think that card is pretty good,
like regardless of what happens, and you get it on the stack.
Yeah,
like,
get
so
it on the stack, so you interact. Yeah,
like
yeah. So like in Jace Lux, you can hold up like
Bile.
Mystic and like Single and shit like that. It's really good.
Spider-Man is asking if we saw most tweets suggesting changing qualifying to peak LP instead of ending LP. I don't love that. I don't know
how much it would actually change. Like, because some people just like for the cutoff, they stop at like a certain point, and like, even if they play it basically disincentivize campaign because I hit that point, so I can keep playing and int my LP away. So.
Yeah, that is. I guess that is the point, right? Is that you get you don't.
So I guess I actually like it. As far as like the top of the ladder goes, and people trying to play for first, second, third, I doesn't change anything for them. And for the people camping, it just is super weird because it'd be too hard to keep track of. Because now, okay, what's the 7-2 cutoff? Because everybody just hinted all their LP away. I was like, okay, this guy was 700, this guy was 710. Like, do I need to hit 750?
You'd have to have like a leaderboard where like it shows everyone's top.
It's just a Twitter account that screenshots all top 700 players every day.
So if there's like a Riot kept leaderboard, I'm actually super on board with that idea. I like it.
I think there's like 2 issues with it. Number 1 is that it's difficult to keep track of, but if they had a leaderboard, that'd be cool. Number 2, do you think that it would lower the quality of ladder games? If people are like, oh, I hit 700 LP, I'm just going to play bullshit all the way back down to 0 and just like spam bullshit on ladder. I'd like maybe that's fine.
Yes, but is that a bad thing?
I mean, I think that you might end up with like inflated LP on ladder because, you know, if people just like farm that shit. I think that it also, You know, there's maybe abuse cases in this scenario, but
if
maybe
that's the
not.
case, it creates a feedback loop because like, oh, it creates an LP inflation, so it means like they need to start playing real deck again to get their LP back up.
Here's the
Like,
thing.
just-
Maybe.
Here's the thing. Imagine this. Imagine you're in like whatever week number 2 of the season, and you go up to like 700 or 800 or 600 or whatever, and you're like, cool, I'm like pretty
how I'm a
good.
Hydra player.
But what do you do? Like you're actually going to intoway your LP, and now it gets to like 2 more weeks, and it turns out we're in a Kennen RE meta, and everyone's just going to climb past 1,000. You're like, oh, now I'm going to start back from 200 again, back to get up there. Like, no, everyone's just going to do the same thing. I don't think it changes anything.
Like when I'm climbing, it's like usually like if I go for the top, like I'll never drop below like a certain point. Otherwise, I just feel like completely demoralized. Like I'll just go like 200 and then like 300, 400, and 500, and then wherever I feel like stopping.
You gotta do what I do and just always feel completely demoralized.
There's one deck I want to talk about.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, there's one deck I want to talk about, and
Kennen
it is
Ezreal.
Yeah, it is Kennen Ezreal.
Tell me.
It's very. It feels very good. I don't know. I know Jason has played a lot of it,
Not really.
and I'm still trying. You like it, right? I'm still trying to figure out like, do you play the sign-in package and everything else? And
Yes.
I
Even
don't
if it's
don't
wrong.
think you do. I'm not
Even
sure
if
you
it's
do.
no, if it's wrong, you just go. You just do it. Drawing cards is always right. Continue.
Yeah.
That's true. Good point.
that deck seems like to have a lot of promising. Like the matchup spread of that deck is very super interesting, and I actually really dig it, and I want to make a lineup with it in mind. But like every kind of like build of the deck, there's always things that I don't like about it. So like I maybe we should try to brainstorm this. But I don't know. What are your opinions on Kennen Ezreal? You think it's good or not?
I
it
think
beats Pantheon.
I think if you could run an algorithm or whatever that would spit out the best Kennen Ezreal list, you'd have an incredibly powerful tier 1 deck. I don't think we have the best list though.
It just feels like incredibly fragile because if you don't draw Kennen between turns 1 and 3, most times your deck just does nothing. Like
You
yeah,
have
maybe
the
play like
Wayfinder, right? But like
maybe like, but even if you like float turns 1, 2, 3, and then play Wayfinder on turn 4, you're losing against a lot of matchups because you didn't
That's
do anything
true.
the first 3 turns.
your deck does, yeah. You do not have
Otherwise,
plays
like
if
what
you don't
you
have
play
Kennen.
like Shadow Assassin on turn 3, and then I've developed my tempo card. it just feels very difficult if you don't like get Kennen early on, which gives it a little bit of inconsistency. But otherwise, like when you do draw Kennen, your games are just totally different, right?
I think when you draw your stuff and you do your thing, the thing that you're doing is incredibly strong. And it's very difficult to deal with because you're still running like 1 mana denies and 2 mana denies that, just keep your shit alive forever. Right. Like I've had insane turns where I'm, doing like 16 plus damage, completely uninteractive. But the issue is, it's just incredibly inconsistent. I don't know. I don't know if I would want to play like 9 rounds of this deck.
That sounds
think
like
it's
I
very
would
perfect deck
absolutely want to play 9 rounds of the deck. Would it be a good idea? No, probably not.
I don't know, maybe if we can figure it out, like some.
I think you could find a really good list. Yeah.
Splash and Harry or
do
something.
turns 1 to 3 that matter.
Do you think it consistently beat Pantheon every time? Like if you draw a Kennen or not?
If
Because
you have
the
5
Ionia pack.
4-mana spells, like
I
5
would really
non-deny
hope
4-mana
so.
spells, then yeah.
Like you're
It's
picking all
also
the
so
spells
sick
and-
because you just counter Cataclysm with like literally any card in your deck.
Yeah, Cataclysm sucks against you.
It's like, ha, suck it, nerd. Bounce my card. I wanted to do that anyway. But yeah.
Okay, so this is a good segue. I wanted to talk lineups because we're coming up to seasonals, and the tournament meta's looking pretty spicy. There's a lot of Lux running around, I've noticed. What are you guys' thoughts if like seasonals was this weekend? What would you be on?
I'm going to cut in here really quick. I'm going to head out because I will have no valuable input and my head is hurting me really bad still. So I'm going to go lay down in a dark room.
All right.
Okay,
I'm
feel
watching.
better.
See you guys later. Thank you.
It's okay, we didn't need him. He hasn't played.
Yeah, it was
Got
dead
him.
weight anyway, right?
Hasn't won a season in like a year.
Didn't you say you haven't played at all in the past 2 weeks yourself?
I mean, like haven't played compared to like like a Hydra player or something. I still played like 5,000 games,
They
so like
don't
a little. I
play
played a little bit.
They all go to 700 LP on the first 2 weeks and they stop playing, which is fine.
No, they're
Fine.
still playing. I'm pretty sure. Hold on. I'm not going to
think
let
a
you
lot of them-
besmirch the good name of Hydra on this podcast. Hold on, I'm
Oh,
finding
they're
it.
all cracked. Don't get me wrong.
Finding it
I
right
think-
now.
I think they scrim.
Wait,
a
they
lot.
have some like really good graphics on Twitter. Why can't we have some of those?
Garrett's played a week ago. Danudu played 6 days ago.
That's not the active player
That's
base.
incredibly inactive.
And Black Boss and Easy Win played 2 months ago.
Oh,
Okay,
They
my
scrim a
point.
lot. I think that's
How's
what
that
they
even
do.
possible?
Mhm.
I guess the season's
Aren't
been
they
going on for
both
forever, hey? I forgot. Holy crap, the
Actually.
season's been going so long.
Yeah.
I forgot what seasonals even was.
Right. My thoughts on tournaments. I don't know. I'm beating a dead horse, but I still think it's about Pantheon a bit right now. To a lesser extent, like Demacia, like J-Slox. J-Slox is popular, but like it's not the deck that I'm trying to like hardcore beat or hardcore. Like it's just like it does its thing. It could be like I could ban it or something, but I'm seeing it as either go control and try to ban Pantheon, and you're as like basically telling yourself the other two decks that they bring, they're not going to farm control, surely, and that's a bit of copium. Or go aggro and lose to the control players, or you're right in the middle with Pantheon. You want to make sure you don't lose to the control player, and you're trying to do okay into the aggro player. And it seems like the only three real paths that I'm seeing, and trying to cut into that feels not that good. Like triple Ionia is okay, I think. Like it should be okay into Pantheon and
Like
control.
what?
And
What's your triple Ionia lineup?
which is the problem, because like it's like Kennen Ezreal, Viego Ionia, and like something else, Victor Lee, or like
So, I spent like 4 hours yesterday going over like tournament results and lineups and matchup tables on stream because I made a YouTube video about it. Well, by the way, guys, you should check out my YouTube video because I talk all about this.
Ooh.
But I think that there is a pretty decent Ionia lineup. I think it's like Kennen Ezreal. I think it's Viego. And I think that it's like not Lux. It's Aphelios Lee Sin. I think it's like a pretty reasonable direction to go.
yeah.
I think that you're running into serious consistency issues like across the board though. I think
all
that
your decks have like a pretty big fail rate.
yeah, especially like Viego and Kennen Ezreal just like keel over and die sometimes. I think that like probably one of the most common ones is just gonna be like Pantheon Talia Ziggs X, where X is like Sundisk or something, and you're just like aggro isn't real. I'm gonna beat everything else. I think Lux Jace is gonna be like super popular, but like building a lineup around it is really weird because it doesn't. If you look at matchup tables, it doesn't beat like any of the tier 1 decks. Like actually 0 of them. It beats like everything else, but it's losing to like every single tier 1 deck.
That's kind of
But it
fine
feels
though,
strong.
right? Like, because most lineups are not 3 tier 1 decks. There's almost always one like straggler in there to like make it work. At least one, right? You just got to beat that one. So
I think Pantheon, Talia Ziggs, and Sundisk is like a fucking nuts lineup that you aren't beating.
That sounds disgusting.
okay, so there's like one lineup, but it's what every other lineup you've got like a good matchup in there, and like that's what you want, right? Like as long as you could just peg one of the decks, like
sometimes it's just like a 50-50 and then bad matchups. Like it's good. I think J-Slox is good, but I don't think it's a defining things in the tournament metagame, especially in seasonal, because there's just so many players. As we always say, it's just so wide. So don't try to do super narrow thing. But since it's so wide, I agree that J-Slox is a good candidate to be played. But if you actually want to make the top cut and make the top 32, you'll actually need to consider like, okay, once I get to 6 to 7 wins, like I'm going to play against real lineups that I need to beat. So I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Triple Ionia is on my mind. If all else fell, playing a Pantheon lineup and either slant it towards make sure I beat control or make sure I'm okay into aggro and like tech confronts and things like that. I haven't figured that out yet.
I think
And
that's
Shuffle,
like
maybe Shuffle is something.
that's like the only reason that's Pantheon is scary is because he just gets like shit on by aggro decks, and I think that like aggro's like a real consideration. I think that like you can make a really strong aggro lineup right now. I think it looks like Scion, Pirates, and then like Jordan Arms. I think Jordan Arms is still like really good, and it's farming like everything that you're trying to farm with your aggro lineup.
Feels like Scion could fit into like a non-aggressive
There's like 2 different builds for sure. The build I'm on right now is Scion Rumble and then the one Draven. I dropped that in the Discord
that
yesterday.
list looks super good actually. Like I'm super interested, but I think Scion Driven is also, we just haven't talked about it and I completely blanked on it. But in tournaments, the deck does everything I wanted to do. Kind of, I think it's pretty high up. Like it's okay into Pantheon. You can even like be more aggressive to make it better. Scion, some control deck just falls to Scion. Some of them they're just annoyed, and sometimes they're gonna win with it, and you just still have like your all-in plan of just killing them. It feels good. It feels like it does everything. Into aggro is just like aggro mirrors. It's gonna flip. Scion Driven is on high on my list of just trying to fit it in the lineup. I don't really like being on triple aggro in open rounds because you're gonna, just as there's crazy people with triple aggro, there's crazy people with triple SI, and that's the same thing. Like the same argument either way. Like if I want to be like as good as possible and get as wide as the field, going triple aggro is sketchy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What do you think, Jason?
I'm leaning more towards like this triple Ionia kind of lineup. I would like to be good into Pantheon and good into Field Rush, and then I want to dodge aggro. I think that's always been like the strategy that I find myself entering seasonal tournaments in. And this season, at least, I stumbled upon a deck, or at least some sort of archetype that I'm sort of happy with. I like Leona. I'm bringing Leona Yasuo, so I'm building around.
Hey, Godspeed, man.
And Leona Yasuo is like, I think hands down the least shit that it's been for a long time. It's like if there were seasonals to bring it, I think that it's very reasonable.
This is the one. This is the
all
one.
Right. Now talk to me then about Shellfolk, Aikado, because I know you've played that.
I think Shellfolk is really good into FTR. I think if you're good at the deck, I think you crush FTR. I think that you're also really good into aggro. And then you have game into like most of these mid-range piles that people are trying to play. You're beating Scion really hard. The issue, you do not beat Pantheon at all. Pantheon is fucking doomed. You do not beat Talia Ziggs. You do not beat Lux Chase. Lux Chase is an unwinnable matchup.
So you're saying Demacia is a nightmare?
I think you're like fine into Sivir, and I think that you're favored into Scouts.
Oh yeah, Scouts.
We're talking about the Ezreal BC one, or
yeah. So Ezreal Victor. The list that I would be on right now if I were going into a tournament is teching like one Glorious Evolution, and then like some Financiers. Because Glorious Evolution, like if you get it off, you instantly win against any control deck ever. And it's so good against like everything. That as long as there's not a deny, like I think it's so good. And I think that like you just have so much burn and so many targets that your opponent has to deal with. I do think this deck's really good, but again, it's losing really hard to Pantheon, Jace Lux, and Talia Ziggs, which is really scary.
Yeah, in tournaments, that feels scary for sure.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Talia Ziggs, by the way, which is a deck that I've never really like gravitated towards a whole bunch. I didn't like it when it first came out, but now I'm like pretty in love with it. I just like, it has so much explosive power. Like I feel like you can beat anything. Like that's what I want from my decks. That like even in your bad matchups, there's that like gotcha. Like I went ABC and like you didn't have the right answer, you died.
Quick question: why'd you cut Chemist from your list, by the way?
Me?
Well, Chemist is so good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because the one that I copied from the internet didn't have Chemist in it.
Oh, okay. Because I did like a coaching session with someone where we spent like 2 hours playing Talia Ziggs, and I ended up checking your list. I'm like, bro, I like that you have Poke, but why the fuck did you cut Chemist? What's going on here?
I'll be fair though. Whoever's list I copied, they were a good player, I'm sure, because I only copied from the best. I'm either at the top of the ladder, or it was someone from our team.
Yeah, it's really good. Talia Ziggs is incredibly strong. It just like runs over so many decks. The issue is it's just like Pantheon. It's like literally exactly like Pantheon in that like you get fucking railed by aggro. But
I don't think it's super salvageable. Like you need the very top of your draws to actually have a chance against aggro. Like you actually need 1, 2, 3, and that deck when it missed curves also can feel so clunky. Way more in Pantheon, but it's pretty good.
If you miss like the landmark half of your deck, sometimes you're staring at like just useless hands. You have like a Ziggs at 1 out of 4, and then you have like some other just cards that just don't do anything. It's like, oh well, that's kind of sucks. But when you draw well, I think that the cards or the deck is incredibly strong.
It's super well played.
I feel like you have more, like you can grind more than with Pantheon. Like some with stuff doesn't line up with Pantheon. Sometimes it's just like I don't know, just drawing cards off the top of my deck and like hope they do something, or like you're just kind of like out of the game sometimes. Whereas like with Talia Ziggs, you're like, oh yeah, I'm losing. Oh, I killed you. Oops. Like, oh hey, I drew the stun landmark into like some burst spell thing or like whatever, or just like Ziggs flipped and I just burned you out from a billion.
It also feels a lot better to be playing Talia Ziggs because you draw a million cards.
That feels nice. Like, that's probably the only real reason. Everything I'm saying is probably just like hopium and just like I draw cards.
Also just like don't necessarily lose control. Like Hourglass is too stupid, and why does Stream of Deny? And it's hated.
It's disgusting.
It's a nightmare.
Like maybe
a nightmare.
Maybe a lineup is like Pantheon, Talia Ziggs. I think these two decks go together, and you should probably run them together. Third deck could be like Sivir. It could be like Scouts. But it could also be like
Scion?
Yeah, I was gonna say Scion. Like the mid-range Scion with like a loose and stuff that are probably giving you like a better shot into control matchups. Yeah, I think that'd be like a really reasonable lineup.
Like Sundisk.
Or just Sundisk. I think Sundisk is like the obvious third deck.
You're just kind of praying aggro does not exist, which is fair, but it's always like a gambit to take. When you're playing like triple Ionia, for example, maybe some of your decks are iffy into aggro. They all have like a super decent shot of beating it anyway, just because Ionia is like as a color is very often decent against aggro. I don't know about the Yasuo, but like all the other Ionia decks I've played, even if like I'm like not sure about the aggro matchup, you always have like decent outs.
What about Sentinels? I feel like there's not a lot of love. There's not a lot of love on our team for Sentinels, but like I just keep seeing it put up results.
I think it's a solid deck. My issue with Sentinels is that it doesn't beat FTR, it doesn't beat Pantheon, it doesn't beat Talia Ziggs. So it's like it just kind of feels bad. I think that it will probably slot into like an FTR lineup. I think like FTR plus Sentinels is like a pretty reasonable place to land. I think Jace is like really good and exists in like 3 different like really strong decks, and like deciding what Jace deck you bring I think is going to be something that we have to do.
Which Ezreal maybe, which Jace deck or something like that,
and then which Talia deck. Do you bring Malphite? Do you bring Thralls? Do you bring
Trolls?
The good one?
Or Thralls.
Or Thralls.
I've heard that name in so long.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sentinels is like you can if you're a very good tempo player, you can just like skill diff a lot of people because you just put down like the pressure and you win by like turn 5. But in some matchups you just can't grind very hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's decent. It's just it's in my triple SI lineup, like with FTR and something trashy sort of things like that. But it's the worst of it's usually the worst of them.
It's the worst control deck in your lineup.
I see in the chat Tribeam. I don't know about you guys, but I am incredibly low on Tribeam.
Yeah, I used to love Tribeam.
Tribeam's like my favorite deck, but oh my god, it doesn't beat anything. It's literally unwinnable into FTR. It does not beat Talia Ziggs. It doesn't beat Sundisk. What the fuck are you beating? You don't even beat Jace Lux. How do you not beat Jace Lux?
You don't? What?
No, it's like 60-40.
You when you die.
Oh, that's true. That's true. If you bring it, you're out there to skill different people. That's it. Yeah. You're super good with the deck, and you're just gonna skill diff people.
The only thing that you beat is Pantheon, and like you have that 53% into aggro, except you don't beat Scion. So like, good fucking luck.
There's like I actually also like I was big Tribeam fan like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, yeah, this deck like has a pretty decent matchup thread. It can even beat Sundisk with some draws, and like I'm fine with it. And some people on EU went super high, but I just think the stocks went turbo down. The metagame shifted in a way. Everything feels bad. Like when you like everything you see feels bad when you play Sundisk. Tribeam. I don't know. Why would you play that when you have just so much other options?
If you bring it's because it's comfort and because you think you're just gonna like skill diff people, right? Like you just want to beat the bad decks and you want to just like be better than your opponent. Which it works sometimes. I think that there's like a Jace Lux, Tribeam. You'd like to put Sentinels, but you're already using Jace. I don't know. There's like a third deck in there. Maybe it's like Scouts or something. No, it's not Scouts. Maybe it's just Pantheon. I don't fucking know, dude. It's hard to build a lineup around it because Tribeam is just like a huge ass hole in your lineup, no matter how you slice it.
Just comfort pick. There's only a reason that I would see this deck being played.
That's one thing that like I'd love to stress to people is like don't have a hole in your lineup. I'm sure you guys have experienced this. Everyone has. Like you play against some lineup and it's like 2 decks that you think are very good, and you're like, I don't really want to play against either of those. And then one deck that you're like, I win this round. Okay, we're good here.
And that's why lineup building is so tough in Runeterra and Conquest. That's why I love tournaments. It's so hard. That third deck, man. It's always that third deck. That third deck that's trying to plug the holes of like or be the same way of the other 2 decks. And when you find it, your lineup feels amazing. But more often than not, your third deck is always gonna have some leaks. And it's about trying to figure out which leaks are the least worst.
And keep in mind, like, you don't have to have like a literal perfect lineup to win tournaments. I've gone through like the last like 5 Master Runeterras. Like again, I spent like 4 hours yesterday going over this stuff, right? And I'm looking at these lineups and I'm like, half of these lineups make 0 fucking sense. You have like 2 decks that are like, oh, okay, this beats FTR, this beats FTR, awesome. Jace Lux. Bro, what the fuck?
I'm checking the top 4 every day, and there was maybe 2 lineups total in the past 5 days. Like, oh yeah, those lineups I actually like, and every other is like, nah, that's trash, man. That's just trash.
So cringe. It's so.
Well, yeah,
but they're winning tournament. They're winning, right?
This is the thing, though. This is the thing, though. The tournaments only have 25 to 35 people. So, like, if you're top 4, you're like what, top 20% of the tournament? Like, it wasn't exactly like there's a lot of variance from tournament to tournament. Exactly.
4-0, you know, with the lineup.
Yes.
So it's like it's hard to base your stats on that.
Yeah, for sure.
No, lineups are hard, but I think that there are definitely like a few pretty solid ways to go right now. Yeah. So,
good segue to a plug. This Saturday we have a $500 free to enter tournament thanks to GG Tour. Everyone come out. We'll see. This will be the last weekend before seasonals. So the results from that tournament will probably be like somewhat telling on who makes top 8, what those lineups look like. Also, we're going to have a last chance sort of tournament Friday night, starting at like 5 p.m. Pacific, I want to say. Wow, single elimination, also $500 prize pool. Get that testing in. We're going to have one early in the morning, the normal Master Runeterra. We're also raising money for kids with cancer. It's Gaming with Josh. We'll have posts about that.
Friday, like next Friday right before seasonal?
Yep. So this Saturday is the $500 tournament, and then the Friday night right before seasonals, get that last testing in. It'll be single limb, just fast, furious.
What I'm hearing is I have one last tournament that I can just steal a lineup from. Easy clap.
That's exactly whoever's winning on Saturday, just watch for if you queue up against me in seasonals, just know that's where I'm at probably.
I think a criminally underrated deck right now that just it's sort of been like flying under the radar all season is Scouts. I think Scouts is really good. It doesn't beat Pantheon and it doesn't beat Talia Ziggs, but it kind of beats like almost everything else. It's kind of good.
I agree.
Well, last season or the one before, whatever, it was like super good, right?
Good. It's always good in seasonal tournaments. It just like beats up random
putting
stuff.
up like really high win rates on ladder for like a few weeks.
Comes out of nowhere, out of left field.
It's Field Rush, right?
I was like, yes,
it crushes Field Rush.
I was on Scouts 2 weeks ago in RA, and I think the deck's
you were what? I don't remember.
I did play Scouts. You played with me. I crushed 2-0.
Yeah, you gave me Scouts too. I also do it.
Yeah, it was good, right? I give you Scouts because you didn't submit a lineup. Which,
I think they banned it both times. I just crushed them with the other 2, but
it did its job. Basically, it's won 2 times. Speaking of which, like real quick, like RA, we haven't had a RA since the changes, which I think will also since a lot of people are screaming for it and like theorizing for it. And sure, you can look at the MR tourneys and see some definition of a metagame. I think RA is going to be the big one now. So this week and next week, next week, everybody's going to be playing their seasonal lineups just to practice with it. And this week's like people are figuring out their seasonal lineup, and it's going to be super interesting to go over all those lineups. There's going to be like they should all make sense in theory. Like this is the one from the top teams. So yeah, I'm pretty excited this week for RA.
Yeah, that's a good point. So speaking of scouts, though, if you guys are like, hey, scouts kind of hot, Kevor, you were playing a couple weeks ago. Why is no one bringing that up as like one of their decks for seasonals?
I think it feels bad to play. I think people just don't like playing it.
I hate playing it.
I think it's for the same reason that people aren't talking about Yordle and Arms. But Yordle and Arms is still really fucking good, guys. I'm telling you, it's still really good.
I don't know about that, but I could be swayed.
You say you don't know.
I literally have not played a single game versus Yordle and Arms.
Yeah,
in my head,
for no reason.
In my head, it sounds still okay, but I don't know. I guess like it's there to farm Pantheons.
I think I have like a 78% win rate over like 40 games on ladder with it. I think it's really good.
This is a decent win rate.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question: where do you watch seasonals?
Oh, so
is MR doing a stream?
Yeah, so there is a seasonal stream happening.
Ooh.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but there is a stream. It will be on Twitch. You will be able to watch it. It will be big.
Oh damn!
Let's go seasonals. That's actually pretty hype.
The guys from Runeterra Academy did say they're like maybe, I don't know if Aikado knows anything, but
I cannot. I don't think I'm allowed to like say anything. So I just know that there is going to be a stream from somebody at some point.
There's things brewing in the
yeah,
background.
so like MR might have a stream, like Runeterra Academy guys might have a stream. A lot of us will playing and will probably be streaming.
It's not NDA. I don't think that I'm allowed to leak what has been leaked to me. It's I can't betray confidence like that.
Yeah, that's just not cool.
Yeah,
there's no NDA in this scene. It's just
but at least two unofficial broadcasts, it sounds like, and then just plenty of players that'll be streaming it.
Yeah, there'll be stuff. Just come on Saturday. It'll be happening. Okay,
2 weeks out.
That's it's been an hour from us. We gotta get going. Any closing words or thoughts from anyone as we say goodbye to the people? Happy birthday, Aikado, again.
Happy birthday, Aikado. My closing thoughts. I enjoy Runeterra right now. The changes are are good. They're better than if they're like before. The game is better than before, and this tournament meta is somewhat healthy. It's like still not figured out, and I'm gonna be putting times in the next 2 weeks trying to get number 1 on ladder. Let's go.
Yeah, it's been a while since I liked Runeterra this much. I'm really into it.
Yeah, I'm like
there's so much cringe though. Pantheon, Field Mirage, bro. Come on.
Whatever.
There's a lot of cringe.
There's a lot of cringe, but
I feel like every matchup I loaded, I'm like, bro, this matchup's so fucking cringe.
I just stopped moves on ladder, and I'm loving it.
Sorry, but I am enjoying LOR. I love LOR.
Yeah, to me, what I've seen so far is that there's a lot of different decks that are popping up and that you can play, which I think is awesome. I'm like sad that I don't have more time to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, we're out of here. We're gonna go raid the good people over at looks like Mastering Runeterra.
Yeah, I know those guys.
I know, yeah, they seem like good people. They're having a tournament right now, I hear. So we'll go say hi to Sparkling Iced Tea. All right, everybody.
Let's go trash talk your lineup.
Let's go.
Peace.
Peace.